Recording live on Facebook. Okay. 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 And we are live.
Okay.
Hello to Anna Olswanger.
Hello, Mel.
It's so wonderful to have you on the program. I always get so excited that I forget to introduce the program. So I'm Mel Rosenberg, and I'm the host. Actually, I'm also the founder of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. And I have the wonderful author and agent, and who knows, perhaps future publisher, Anna Olswanger. And I also have another plan for you, Anna, because I know that you also like interviewing people. So I'm thinking of retiring and then passing the baton to you.
Thank you.
In the meantime, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
I'm deeply honored that you agreed to be on. I've interviewed two of your wonderful clients, Miri Leschampelli and Martin Lemmelman, who also have the same initials. I think that I'm going to tell everybody that in order to become your one of your
clients,
people, you have to have a first name that begins with an M and a second name that begins with an L, and it's downhill after that.
Could you imagine an agent or editor responding that we're so sorry we can't accept your manuscript because you don't have the right initials, which is about as arbitrary as some of the rejections are.
Listen, this is an idea for a book. I'm writing this down.
Okay.
You know, because what advantage do I get interviewing all these wonderful people? Is I get ideas.
Actually, I do have 2 book ideas for you, and after we talk, I'll email them to you. I was thinking they actually would be perfect based on what you've done so far.
Well, we can come back online afterwards and we'll just throw everybody out and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Anna, but this is about you. I've discovered that you are an esteemed author of children's books. You have 3 that I know about and many that you're keeping hidden. And you are also a wonderful agent. I know that from the people you represent. And you also are a wonderful daughter. So I'm going to shut up now. You talk.
I spent years and years and years as an aspiring writer. Never really got to publish the way I had hoped. And how many years ago? 2005, I discovered, I actually enrolled, I discovered in the course of being a writer that I really liked submitting. I liked the business of it. I liked discovering editors. I liked hearing from them what they wanted, what they were interested in. So I thought I actually wanted to be in publishing. So I lived in Baltimore. I took the bus every week up to New York, explored New York, and then got the chance to get a job, and not in publishing, but I moved to the New York area and started the certificate in book publishing program at NYU. Again, always thinking I would go into publishing. But I took, you have to take a certain number of courses. I took how to be an agent course and loved it, just loved it. So I interned for the agent who taught the course. And then when he got tired of me, I interned for another agent who was in his suite. And then she asked me to join her agency. So it was, and what I loved about it was, I mean, you can say it's altruistic. I love helping other people refine their vision, get the manuscript ready, and the thrill that they get when they get an offer. But it's also just the fun of publishing, that you're just in it. You get to see books take place, and it doesn't even matter if it's your book. It's like the miracle of seeing a plant grow? How can you conceive of the food you eat, as this seed in the dirt? And it's the same thing with the manuscript, to just the excitement of a raw text that becomes a book with art that gets reviewed, that's in libraries, it's in bookstores that kids get to talk about. I just think it's a wonderful world. So I didn't discover that joy of helping someone else get published until years and years, after I had been struggling. And so, and to connect that with what you said about the daughter, is my father was a musician, and so he left a lot of music behind. Some he recorded, some he didn't. And it's just that same kind of thrill of taking an unrefined piece of creativity and bringing it to the world. I found a music publisher for his music. It goes out into the world. He just actually won an award in Memphis, which is where we grew up. And I'll go for the ceremony next year. But it's just that fun of bringing something to the world. And it's also the challenge. I mean, you know how hard it is to get published. And it's hard for agents too. And when I go out with a new manuscript, it's like the hunt has started, and I can't wait to go in for the kill, when I get that editor. So there's a thrill to it also. That's it.
Okay, but it's a little vicarious, isn't it?
It is, but I think that's what keeps me doing my own work, because it's not just my own work. I'm working everything in. I wouldn't want to do without either. I wouldn't want to stop being an agent. I wouldn't want to stop writing. I wouldn't want to stop promoting my dad's music. So it's a symphony. It's pulling it all together.
It's a buffet.
Yes.
Anna's buffet. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, you have your own company, your own literary agency. I think maybe perhaps you're sitting in your premises as we talk. It looks like a publishing house.
Well, one of my joys is making order out of chaos. So there's always a lot of chaos. Always trying to make order.
I believe in limited chaos, or limited sloppiness. I didn't invent that term, but as a scientist, I think you have to be a little sloppy. So perhaps as a writer also.
Right.
Okay, let's go back to young Anna. You grew up in Memphis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about young Anna and how you were drawn to books.
First of all, it was a world without computers. It was a world, television had just really come in. When I was a kid, was colored television came in. So I probably watched too much television as a kid, which as an adult now I consider somewhat passive. But it was such a creative time. Television was so creative. It was, my favorite Martian.
Yes.
The Martian. It just seems so creative. And ideas, and so I didn't differentiate between television and books. It was the same kind of new world. And unfortunately, when I was older, I would say middle grade, what's called middle grade now, I went to a school that was very high pressure, and I stopped reading for pleasure because there was no time. You just studied for tests. And I didn't regain my joy of reading until really later in college, and even somewhat after that. And yeah, so I lost time, but at the same time, I just have a joy in reading now, um, because it's for me. It is not for a test. It is not, you know, what's the theme? Who are the main characters? I don't care. I just want to read the story. I read 10 books at a time now. They're all stacked on my table. There's just so much out there. How could you limit it to one book at a time?
Well, when did you start writing?
When I was in high school, I knew I didn't want to be a musician because my father was a musician. And, this was the 60s. You didn't want to do anything close to what your parents did. So I wanted
I should say your father, Berl Olswanger, was a wonderful jazz musician and composer. You sent me his music. I'm going to ask Dr. Marshall Poe, who runs NBN, if you'll, at the end of our conversation, if you put some of your dad's music on, if you will send me something that's copyright free, I'll be happy to ask him.
Okay.
So you loved your dad's music, but you didn't want to compete with him?
I didn't feel like I had a chance. He was too good. And he had luck on it. So I chose art and writing, but I could never decide which. And I actually thought art was the direction I would go in because as I said, it was such a pressured school that I didn't want to have anything to do with intellectual knowledge.
Who sent you to this pressured school and why?
It was the times. My parents wanted their kids to succeed, so they sent us to private schools that were college preparatory schools. But I think the schools have changed, but and what I think they did was squelch creativity. So I could not wait to be creative when I left that school. I didn't want to write a term paper. I didn't want to do anything that was not creative. But what happened was this was, the tail end of the 60s. It was the 70s, the middle 70s, and the college I went to accommodate the times had eliminated all requirements. You could take whatever you want. You could take 120 hours of whatever you wanted. So in the art department, why would I take drawing? That was too hard. I just jumped right into painting. And so what happened was by the time I was a senior, I couldn't paint because I had no basic drawing skills. And so it was a very frustrating experience for me that I could not paint what I wanted to paint. So I gave up art and I went back to writing. And stuck with writing. But of course, now as an agent, I am so enamored of art with text that's what I focused on as an agent. So I didn't kill it, but I left it, and I do hope to go back. I hope to take art.
We're going to go back to your writing career, but you've already segued into your career as a literary agent, and most agents today who take, for example, picture book authors, will take only picture book authors and illustrators. And I've had somebody on the show who said that was because of financial gain. And in our discussion leading up to this conversation, you had another take on this.
Can you remind me what I said?
I can. Why you represent the authors and illustrators is because you like to see the whole picture.
Oh, okay. I do. Well, and I'm also still a visual person. I cannot fully evaluate a manuscript unless I see the art. There are lots of great agents that just represent the text, and more power to them. And that may be my flaw, that I can't. But it's just so wonderful to click on that.
It's not a financial issue.
I mean, there is more money if you're representing the package, but there's no difference between that than if you represented one artist, one author. It's still two parts. But and the reason for me that it's not always more money is because I'm stubborn and I like to keep sending a manuscript out until it finds a home. And it's not unusual that that home is a small press that doesn't pay much money.
Okay, but I have to ask you this, Anna, because most of the editors I've spoken to, or I've listened to in podcasts or in meetings, they actually like to pair. They like to be the ones who control the pairing process. And you know, I have a book out, and I couldn't budge them even 1 millimeter on picking the illustrator. In the end, they picked the most amazing illustrator in the world for me. But the editors like to do that. They like to be the ones who decide. And you are giving them like the whole caboodle and say, take it or leave it.
Yeah, I mean, and there are a lot of agents like that. And it's interesting now, I have submitted to a few British publishers, and they are exactly what you said. They want to find the illustrator. And in fact, I submitted a package to one British publisher, and I said, we like the text, we don't like her art. So would she be open to just, licensing her text to us, which she was. And that's happened to me in the US. I have really talented author illustrators, and I'll send the package, and the publisher will say, can somebody else illustrate this? Which, is devastating to the author illustrator. But then, then you have to decide, do I want to be published or not? It's an interesting experience. You find, and it's not that you're selling out. If you make that decision that, okay, just take my text or whatever, you're deciding on what's going to be the next step to lead you where you want to be. Sometimes you can't just take that quantum leap. You do have to take it step by step. And so maybe that interim step is not quite what you wanted, but it will lead to what you wanted. So I think I asked my clients to consider that, when that kind of situation arises.
So Anna, because we've established a relationship, we're friends now. And I should tell everybody, you're never going to represent me because I can't draw a stick man, which is okay. I would rather be friends. But somebody is going to think the following. I look at children's books as something that's holy. For me, these are like prayer books, children's books. You are a kind of a rabbi or a rebbitzin in this area, because essentially you decide which prayers go into the prayer. And most of the important editors, they really don't have time to look at slush piles. You're the one who goes to the slush pile, you decide, and you present them with what you think should go into what should be the canonical prayers of our young children. How does that sit on you?
Again, it's a symphony, because what I love and curate and present to editors is totally different from another agent. I'm not worried that I'm crushing someone's dream, because I know there's another agent out there for them, or there's just another path. Some people self-publish. Some people start their own publishing companies. Some people find that it wasn't what they wanted to do in the first place. There was actually something else. People discover that about genres. They are so focused on a genre. And then you ask them, well, what do you read? And they're reading a totally different genre. And you think, that's what you should be writing in. You should write in the genre you love. But I'm not worried. I don't feel like, I truly don't, because I know how many agents are out there. And I know when people submit to me, they don't just submit to me, they're submitting to dozens of others.
I
So,
know, but
and
Anna, I'm going to make this more specific. Okay. Because you are very limited, you accept only author illustrators, and you have a specific desire for graphic novels these days. And you're very picky, and you have also a wonderful cadre of talented, wonderfully talented people, some of whom I know. So you can you receive submissions, but you also have a full buffet.
yeah, it's hard, but I do take on new clients.
Yeah, but how many do you take on? You take on very few. You
I
get
have
you
to,
get you get hundreds of submissions a month.
yes, but most of those are not author illustrators, or they're not in the genre that I represent. I think it's clear not many people check the website before they submit, which is okay. But yeah, it is few. But again, I feel like there's so many agents out there. I'm not the only fish in the sea.
Yeah, okay, but okay. So here I'm going to make this point clear. I wasn't clear enough. Okay. Rena Rosner on our interview, she told me that when she takes a client, the chances are better than 50% that she will sell that client. I think that perhaps is your case also.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So in other words, an agent will see thousands of manuscripts or hundreds of manuscripts and pick one seed that then has 50% chances of blossoming into a tree. I'm using your analogy. I love it. Okay. But so the horticulturalist is you, not the editor, not the acquiring editor, because you are the one who mulls through hundreds and thousands of seeds. And then when you pick one, okay, and I've already learned how wonderful you are in being able to find the nuances and improve manuscripts, then this seed is going to find a home at one of the houses, a big house or a little house. So you are really the person who decides what prayer books the children of America and perhaps UK are going to grow up on.
I think the editors have more power.
And I don't.
You know, because I think that first of all, there are publishers that don't require agented manuscripts. There are plenty of publishers who don't. I haven't actually figured it out, but I should try and figure out what percentage of editors I submit to actually accept my client's work. I think it's pretty small. You know, I'm not getting multiple offers for everything I send out. It usually comes down to one publisher. And you know, which I wish I'd known which one it was going to be at the very beginning, but you know, because
it wouldn't be fun if you knew.
right, okay, but also that's because of my taste. I don't have really commercial mass market taste. So, like for example, the graphic novels that I take on, I usually take on serious nonfiction, beautifully illustrated graphic novels. I'm not doing superheroes. I'm not doing dystopian fantasy. You know, lots of other people do that. So I'm just not the right agent. And what I hope is that when I do take on a client, it's a client that nobody else wanted to take on because they didn't see the potential, but I could. So that's what I hope.
Oh, wow. Those are very powerful words. So let's talk about the potential of Anna, because you said something else. Most authors have egos, and sure they're happy when other people get published, and sure they're happy they help, and it's a very helping and mutualistic society of authors. But what about Anna? You know, you gave up on your musical career, and you've written several wonderful children's books, and now most of your time is helping other people and promoting your dad's music. What's with Anna?
I'm still writing. I still am working on books. But the one thing I've learned from being an agent is that it takes time. And I don't think it's realistic for most writers to think you'll be published every year. I don't think that's real. I haven't seen it. First of all, editors are overwhelmed. They can't publish more than one book per author per year. And also, it gives you time to grow. I think the reason so many bad manuscripts go out and bad books are published is because they didn't have enough time to really develop. I think putting a manuscript away for 3 months and looking at it cold is the best thing you can do as an author. You can see that manuscript at that point the way somebody else sees it, because it is so cold. So I have learned patience with, I do have a large number of clients. I see how their careers go. I see that it is just book after book after book, and it's not always year after year, but it is consistency and persistence, and it just takes patience. I think it's a race for the long term. It's not a short-term race.
Okay,
So
let's talk. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to. You're looking at people who also illustrate their own texts.
Mhm.
So I mean, it literally takes a year at least to
Right,
get the
right.
text and the illustrations going. I know from my friends who've succeeded, sometimes 2 years.
Mhm.
Let's go back now then to Anna, the author, and you have this great story. Maybe you should mention the books that you published, and I want to go back to your little mini books. I love that story.
Well, I'll actually start with the miniature books, because that was my way to cope with not getting accepted for publication when I was an aspiring writer. So I thought I would self-publish, but I didn't want to self-publish the way everybody else self-published. I wanted to do limited edition books that were numbered, that appealed to collectors. And I'm not sure how I discovered miniature books, but there is this whole business and world of miniature books. And so that's, and also the beauty about a miniature book is because it takes space to put your story in this miniature book. You don't have to have 15 illustrations. You can just have one, and the little book is full, because of the text. So it was perfect. And I enjoyed picking out the marbleized paper for the cover and the fake leather for the spine, and it was just fun. And then 2 of those did lead to commercial publication with a small publisher.
And these were unagented deals.
Right.
Okay, could you show, like, we have like the people who are watching the video cast, and then people who will listen to the audio cast. But you can actually show one of your mini books to the people watching, and they're gorgeous. And they're numbered. Like, you invented NFTs 40 years before.
I wish I could show you to scale.
When we meet in New York or New Jersey or in Tel Aviv, I'm going to buy one of those.
It has marbleized paper for the cover. It has fake leather for the spine. It is gold imprinted. It has a colophon at the back where I fill in what number of the edition it is for the collector. And also, if you can see, is that upside down?
No, it's fine.
Which one?
Now it's in Hebrew. That's fine.
Whatever. It says Greenhorn. And that's one of the ones that became commercially published. So was that my ulterior motive? Possibly. But I just loved being in that world. And today, if I were in that position, I might do NFTs, I might do ebooks. I might do a limited edition. I might start my own magazine, but I wouldn't sit on my hands. I would find a way to exercise my creativity. And I think everybody should, because to sit around and complain because an agent or an editor has not picked up your work, it's not going to lead to anything good, I don't think. And then what was the next question you asked me?
I was asking you about your books. So you
Okay.
talked about the mini books. You want to talk now about your Rabbi in Moscow book,
Okay. So that was started.
your hilarious theft book.
The Shlemiel Crooks.
I have to remind you of your books.
Shlemiel Crooks. Well, so that was I had discovered through genealogy research. I discovered a Yiddish newspaper article about my great grandfather, who lived in St. Louis, and these crooks tried to steal. This was during Prohibition, but you were allowed to have religious liquor. So he had a kosher liquor store, and he had just gotten in his shipment of Passover wine, and these crooks tried to steal everything, and but the neighbors heard. And these were this was 1918. This was the Wild West. So people had guns and they were shooting them out the window to scare them off. And what was so funny to me was when the crooks ran away, they left their horse and wagon. So they left with less than what they came with. And I just thought it was funny. So that was the basis of my first children's book. That was based on genealogy research. The second book was based on a story I heard from my rabbi, which was a Holocaust story. And Rabbi Grossman had an amazing life, and he told amazing stories about what he had been through. And I just knew from an early time when I met him that I may have had the writing skills, but I didn't have the life experience to create a really powerful book. And he had the life experience. So I listened to every story he told and wrote it down. And a visit to Moscow was one of the stories he told. And again, this was a thing about being patient that I had learned as an agent. Was I was patient for so long that graphic novels came into style. And that was not something I would have conceived of at the very beginning. I thought maybe it could be a picture book, a short story. I did want it to have illustrations. But until graphic novels got to be so popular, adult fiction did not have illustrations. It was just not encouraged. I can remember at one writers' conference, I asked an editor, why can't there be illustrations to a collection of short stories for adults? And she said, adults don't need illustrations. And it was just, such a dismissive comment that thank God I lived long enough and I waited long enough that a visit to Moscow could be a graphic novel. And I had this wonderful client, Yevgenia Neiberg, who lived in the former Soviet Union. And I just knew she would be the perfect artist for this. So I did package it. I did not submit just the text to the publisher, but like most of the things that I like, it was not commercial, it was not mass market. I sent it to a lot of publishers, and one small publisher made an offer. That was it. But it worked out.
So Anna, were you ever an agent with an agent?
Yes,
or have you...
I was at the beginning. My first agent actually sold one of my picture books to Doubleday then. And it was like a dream come true. And then Random House reorganized. They fired all the editors. The book just got lost in the shuffle and it was never published. And that was probably in the middle 80s. So it took at least 20 years before I was published after that. So it was a real setback. But that agent left the business. I did get another agent who sold that first Shlemiel Crooks book. But then, it got to the point where I could see that my work was not going to sell to big publishers, and it was not going to be much for her. So, we parted ways amicably, and I felt that with my experience as an agent, I could handle a contract. I think a lot of agents use other agents for their contracts because they don't want to talk money with their editor. They don't want it to get sticky. I don't care, So
I think that you should be your own agent.
I actually know a lot of agents who are not.
I mean, there's so many people who would want you as an agent. Why wouldn't you want to as an agent? And and you can pay yourself the 15%. It's a mechaya,
Right.
as us Jews say. It doesn't get any better than that. It's almost Jackie Mason. So when do you want the 15%? Now?
Or when I'm dead.
Or when I'm dead? Do you want to talk about dead people?
Okay.
Because
some of my clients are dead. It's true. And they're wonderful to work with. But I was thinking about that. Not only have some of my clients died, and I still send out their work, I represent, with another agent, I represent the estate of Eleanor Roosevelt. So we still find things to show publishers for her. I represent the literary estate of Marvin Hamlish, the composer. He had written a wonderful children's book when he was alive, and also an adult book. So we still try and do some things with that. And then, of course, the estate of Rabbi Grossman. He left at least 3 or 4 more manuscripts that I'll be working on. So, it's I like the challenge. I like the creativity. I like trying to do what other people think is either impossible or not a good idea. I just like to do it, which is probably that 60s rebellious part of me, that didn't want to take any drawing classes.
So beyond the statistics that I always share, that the chance of getting published today is less than 1 in 1,000. We don't know how much less. What advice would you like to give to our audience of aspiring authors, illustrators? I think for illustrators, it's just as bad.
Yeah.
So what is your best advice other than never giving up?
Make sure you are the best you can be, which means always consider yourself a student. Be curious. Love to read in your genre and try and figure out what those books that you love, what it is that's going on in those books that you could do. And be creative. Don't think there's only one right answer for a question. There are lots of answers, and maybe right now being published by a traditional publisher is not the answer. Maybe there's something else that will lead to that. So be creative.
That's wonderful. So I also, do you want to talk about publishing? Because I got the feeling that one of the things that you would really like to do is to actually be a publisher.
Well, it would be great not to have my clients' work rejected, if I could just publish it. And I think I'm I'm doing a little of that because I'm starting to try to do some NFTs with some of my clients' work, which is a form of self-publishing. Back in the early days, there were a lot of agents who actually published their clients' work as ebooks.
Well,
I
we
don't,
have to talk about that, Anna, because I have an ebook publishing house. So maybe you should be the publisher of my. Maybe, yeah, we should talk. Let's throw everybody out and have a little conversation.
well, see, that's the point. There are so many options. There's so many answers to every question.
And,
And
yeah, and I'll tell you that I've interviewed about 100 authors on this show. And you say it's exceptional to get, and I just had a book published in Israel, and it's also a Michigan story. It's not like all the stories are Michigan, right? There's no such thing as I woke up in the morning, I wrote a story, I put it in an envelope, I sent it to it. Yeah, that happens, but it's completely crazy. Mostly, it's like I crossed the street. I went to a conference, and the guy I was on the bus with. It's never one of these. You have to try very hard and have a wonderful penmanship or authorship or whatever, and then cross the right street at the right time.
But also be open. Be open to the fact that what you might think is not what you want to do. It's not quite right, but be open to it, because it might be the best next step.
Absolutely. Anna, before we had this wonderful conversation, you were worried. You said, "Okay, Mel, but I don't want it to be an interview, and I want to interview you back." Is there anything? Did you feel that we were interviewing, or was it a conversation?
No, I think we're holding my interview of you for the next time. But I think first of all, what you've learned on your 8-year journey, of trying to get published, I think that's worth hearing about. And I love the fact that you started out in the sciences and now you're in the arts, and what you've learned about that, and what you've learned as a father, living in Israel. I think there's a lot that you bring to the table that I would like to interview you.
You've got it. Because I now think that you should be you should be an interviewer on the NBN. I think it'd be wonderful. And I know that you've done a lot of interviews, you see.
Well, actually, that was at the beginning when I was not being published. That was how I satisfied my thirst for the publishing world. I interviewed a lot of people. It was fun. And of course, that was before podcasts. So they were all written interviews that were online. But you have to, if you love publishing, if you love the world of books and you're not being published, there are other ways to participate. And interviewing people in that world is a great way.
So I'm going to petition Marshall to make you a host. And then you can interview me, and I'll be your first interviewee. How's that?
All right, we'll talk. My people will call your people.
Whither thou goest. So and we haven't talked about Jewish books. Let's talk about that another time.
Okay.
And persecution of bald males, which I suffer from as a writer. I was told that I should change my name to Melissa, and I'm considering it. So it's time to chase everybody away, and I'm going to do that gracefully. I hope. So Anna Olswanger, it's been wonderful having you on the Children's Literature Channel for the New Books Network, which I, meanwhile, get to host. And I'm Mel Rosenberg, and this has been tons of fun. So we're going to chase everybody away, and in 2 minutes, I'll see you back here.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks, Anna. It was great.
Thank you.
Go away and come back.
Okay. Are we off?
I think we're still on. I'm going to, we're just gonna leave and then come back. So
So you
leave the
want to do
meeting
closing?
and goodbye, everybody. Leave the meeting and then come back to the same link.